Imagine this. Uma Thurman with a thick French accent. Isabelle Fuhrman, all grown up. And Carrie Bradshaw. Okay, Anna Sophia Roll, but same thing. In a fantasy horror drama film directed by Rodrigo Cortés, director of Buried and Red Lights. Well, don't worry, you don't have to imagine anymore. I know, you're all gasping. Because it exists in 2018 film Down a Dark Hole. The film centers around an angsty teenage girl named Kit, who can't seem to stay out of trouble. She is soon shipped off to Blackwood boarding school, where she is met with the world's most intense mistress, Madame Durette. I definitely said that wrong. Kit is strongly against her new life, but what seems to be weird grows dangerous, and it's time to get to the bottom of it. This film is a lot. From the start, you are dropped into Kit's reality and her intense family breakdown. Her backstory is very detailed, but they make sure to put the groundwork in, even in a speedy way. The premise almost felt like a bad remake of Suspiria. The mystery around the school is the main focus for the story. You can only assume that the writers really wanted to create an intense curiosity for the audience. What is going on in this building is what they wanted. What they got was something bad is happening in that building. Everyone just get out. Uma Thurman was perhaps the strangest aspect of this film, just because her character was overstated, dramatic, and really intense. And her accent, well, it will throw you off at the start, but I have to admit, I did get used to it, and I do applaud her for taking on something that's completely out of her box. My biggest issue is the pacing of this film. It's all over the place. As I mentioned in the start, you hit the ground running, but then it skips over details and skips through time, and you're not really sure when things are happening and the ins and outs of relationships and, bonding time. It's really hard to estimate. And for this reason, I looked this up, and it is based on a book. And I really think that you can tell now when a book has turned into a movie, because they definitely try and stay true to the book, but within an hour and a half, and it doesn't really work. And I felt like that might have been the issue here. It could have been more based on the book and more of a film, but instead they had to jump through hoops almost, and it just didn't seem to gel well. But there are some good things. Usually when I see a horror fantasy, I assume it's for a younger audience and it's a bit toned down. But this film really does have some darker scenes and some really disturbing aspects. And I like that, obviously. Technically speaking, you know that this film is just beautiful, and even more is the location, which I loved. Again, a nice haunted vibe is my ideal aesthetic. The film is also very dark and plays with in-frame lighting and shadows, allowing for another layer of darkness to creep in. But for me, I just couldn't get past the cheesiness of this film. It definitely didn't translate well from book to movie or actor to screen. Some scenes felt like they were out of place, reactions seemed cliche, and the pacing was just very strange. The strangest part about it is it kept in a lot of details, but then there's some aspects where they don't explain things at all that you need to explain in films. And for example, this happens when someone is chained up. One other person enters the room, tries to get them free, takes a bobby pin out of her hair, and just kind of unlocks this massive padlock. And for me, it wasn't something that I would buy. It just didn't make any sense with the film, and they tried to explain things really quickly that I guess they wouldn't have to explain in the book, because visually you see it happen. And don't get me started on the end scenes. If you are not a fan of people acting stupid, if people doing the wrong thing in horror movies, you know what I mean, breaking the rules, you will not like the end of this film. It is so cheesy, it's so silly, and it really dumbs down the whole film. And for me, it let me down completely. So if you're not a fan of that, you'll definitely want to give this one a miss. When I first heard of Down a Dark Hole, I thought I might have found a 2018 horror gem. But I was left realizing that maybe I hadn't heard of it sooner for a reason. I'm gonna give this one a personal score of 5, a scare score of 3, and originality, dare I say it, it is an original concept, so I'm gonna give it an 8. Have you guys seen Down a Dark Hole? I'd love to read what you thought about it, so leave them down in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.